Hello, networkers. My name is Michael Tomatis, and in this episode of Ask the Network Engineer, I will answer one of your questions. And this is a double header. So there were two people that posted more or less the same question. One was posted by Mr. GetHinch, and the other is by Elvis G. And I want to read those questions first. So Mr. GetHinch said the following. He said, I would like to know, how does one close the gap from help desk to network engineer? I have big dreams of being a CCIE like yourself, but I am finding it difficult getting into the field as an engineer. I currently hold a CCNA and I am finishing my CCNP SP, that is service provider, with a year's experience, but he is currently an unemployed ATM engineer. I keep getting phone calls for help desk jobs, but I would rather be working on Cisco, not Microsoft Word and Active Directory. So Elvis G says a very similar question. How do you go from help desk to network engineer? I have my CCNA, but I can't seem to find a network engineering job. Very good questions, and it really gives me the impression that it is probably something that many of you are experiencing. So I wanted to really just talk about that and give you information of how you can close the gap to become a network engineer if you are coming from a help desk background. So let's get started. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and I'm going to talk about this really one by one. But the first one, and this is something that Elvis G and Mr. GetHinch has, you need to focus on certifications. Get certified. If you're starting out in networking, go for your CCENT. Then from there, go for your CCNA. And from there, continue further to your CCNP. What's really important, what I tell people is, you really want to invest in your career. If you want to be a network engineer, then go all the way and get fully certified. Go for the CCIE. Yes, it would take a lot of time. It's a lot of investment that is required, but this will really help you with job security. You have no idea. Try to go all the way out and get fully certified. But having the certifications, it also stands out that it gives employers that you are specialized with networking. If your resume has, that you're a Microsoft professional and you are an A+, if you are a CCNA, a company is kind of confused of, well, are they a server person? Are they a desktop person? Or are they a network person? You need to represent yourself as a network person. So that means get your CCNA, get your CCNP, get networking related certifications, because that will stand out of what you want to specialize in your career. Another thing that you really need to do is to make sure that you have lab experience. You need to get your hands dirty. You need hands-on experience. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, yes, I'm trying to get hands-on experience. But what I'm talking about is pretty much at-home lab learning. That you should go to eBay, buy the equipment that you need, and teach yourself from the certifications that you're learning. The CCNA and the CCNP, there are many different kind of examples that they have in those books that you can use as a reference. But you need to basically kind of build your own kind of little network there at home. It's very possible. You can have something like this diagram here that I'm showing up here. And this is something from one of our labs on our website. This is a very typical network that is common for a lot of small SMB, medium, even some large size networks. You see redundant core switches connecting to an access switch. We call that a two-tier topology. That's a very common topology. And then from there, that will plug likely into a firewall or maybe to an edge router that has firewall services turned on and that connects to the internet. This topology alone is perfect for learning how to do routing for an IGP protocol. You can do OSPF here. You can do EIGRP. Don't waste your time with RIP. So OSPF or EIGRP, you can do that in that type of topology that I'm showing you here. You can do BGP also in this kind of topology. So with these edge routers, they're connecting to some kind of an internet cloud. Well, just make that plug into some other router that can become your ISP router. So then you can do BGP directly from those connections. You can do VLANs here, 802.1q trunking here. You can do VPNs here as well. There are so many things here that you can do. So basically, you need to get a topology, something just like this built. Whether it is you buying the equipment off of eBay or using GNS3.net, where you can basically just have your computer and have these virtualized routers and basically learning everything that you can. Treat that as a real practical network. I guarantee you it's going to go very, very far. That's basically how I learned during my beginning of my IT career. I built the network that our company actually had, a smaller version, of course, but I knew how everything was constructed. I got the network diagrams. I built it somewhat like that, and I configured it. And it helped me to understand how everything worked. I did show commands, like, okay, this is what's happening here. Let me turn off the primary core switch and see what happens and actually observe that behavior. I was basically getting myself hands-on experience being at home, but I was building a practical network that my company already had. And it was very, very valuable. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of getting the lab experience that you need. Now, the next point is going to be a little tough to hear, but this is really important. And this is from my personal experience and from what I witnessed. It doesn't mean this is true for every single help desk company. If you are in a help desk role, I'm assuming that you are in a technical support role where you do have networking responsibilities. And a good example of that is a person that works in a NOC, a network operations center, a NOC technician or a NOC engineer. These are people that usually work in a company and they can connect to other companies' routers or switches. So there they add ACL changes. They do route changes. They put ports into different VLANs. You need to be in a technical support help desk role where you do have network responsibilities. For example, there is a company in Livermore, California. They specialize with mobile devices. They do servers, desktops, things like that. But their help desk recently acquired, or not really acquired, sorry. They had a recent project where they will be supporting their Cisco ASA firewalls. So they know nothing about Cisco ASA firewalls. That's not their specialty. They do Microsoft servers and Microsoft desktops with a little bit of Mac. They're not networking people. They actually contact me to do some of their networking projects. That's something that I did for them a couple of years ago. So they have access to these firewalls and they manage some of the VPNs. They do very minimal stuff. That counts. That is very, very good information right there. It can give you that level of experience. So you really, really need to be in a help desk role that you have network responsibilities. If you do not, then it will be very, very impossible to really accomplish that. I've seen that many, many times. I have one of my closest friends. He used to work in a help desk environment. He worked on PCs. He troubleshooted computers, and he was very, very good at it. But he had interest of becoming a network engineer, and he used to work with me and another colleague in the company. And he had interest, and he stressed his interest to his manager that he wanted to move on and to move more into a networking role. But his management never took him seriously, never supported him to give him the resources to get further education to become a network engineer. He was a desktop person. He was only seen as a desktop person because his role did not involve anything with networking. So if you're in that position, it's going to be very, very challenging. But if you have a particular opportunity that is for a help desk role, I know that you're thinking, I don't want to do anything with help desk. But if it has networking responsibilities where you get to log on to routers, firewalls, and switches, and you're doing various tasks, routing changes, VLAN changes, ACL firewall changes, that is awesome. You want that because that's going to give you that experience to take that the next step further. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, that you need to definitely be in the help desk technical support role that has networking responsibilities. Because if you do not have that currently, it will be very, very impossible to really make that transition depending on your company and depending on how they support your career endeavors. And that leads me to the next point. Depending on the environment that you work in, this one could be a little challenging to do depending on the personality of the network engineers that currently exist in your company. Are they friendly enough? Are they open for you to come by and to ask them questions, to get advice from them? Now, from my experience, a lot of network engineers you don't want to talk to. They keep things to themselves. They do not like to share. It could be different for your company, so only you would know if their personality works. And if it doesn't work, then the chances of you working with them will likely not happen. So you need to kind of be very alert with that. But really what I tell people is try to be friends, learn from the network engineer in that company. Go by there, talk to them, ask them advice in terms of what you need to be learning that is relevant for this company for networking. He or she may say, well, we do a lot of BGP here. Awesome. Then you need to master BGP. You need to read about BGP. Do Google searches. Ask him or her, what articles can I read? What books should I buy to do that? Also, when he or she are making changes on the network, ask if you can watch over their shoulder. If they're doing maintenance windows, ask them if you could be a part of that, of basically watching that and maybe participating in some of that. I'm sure they'd be very happy to help. And what you can really say is that, hey, if there's something very basic that needs to be done, like putting a port into a VLAN, hey, I'm happy to do that. That could be something that me and our help desk team, we can try to push some of those basic tasks onto us. Well, the network engineer is going to love that because that means that they're pushing more of those type of smaller tasks onto you. And that's a good thing because you want that. So you really want to kind of be very close to the network engineer if the personality is there. If they're very quiet, if they do not like sharing, then you shouldn't really do that. But if that person does have the right match, like if I was in that company, you'd be in a good fit because I have always done that. I'm like, oh, you want to help me with the maintenance change? Please come sit down next to me. You can do a couple of these ports and put them to a VLAN. They love that kind of stuff though, because again, I love networking and sharing is, when you love something, you share it. That's really what I understand. So do that. Figure out who are the network engineers in that company. Learn from them, ask them questions, ask advice from them because they know they manage the network there in the company. Ask them for network diagrams, ask them for copies of configuration files. That's a good learning opportunity. I tell people that all the time and people get confused by that. Getting copies of the configuration is a great learning exercise because you're seeing exactly how things are configured and working. We're assuming everything works, specifically in that environment. So you can definitely learn and study the configuration and you can reference that for other articles that you're reading or white papers that you're reading online or books that you definitely purchase. So that is something that I find very, very valuable if the environment fits for what you want to do. Another thing that's important is your company that you're working in, are they open for you to move on to a different department? In this case, you moving on from help desk to the network engineering department. This is a big one. And I talked about this in I Want to Be a Network Engineer, that series. I talk about this and it's a very, very strong point because this really determines everything. Should you really invest your time further in the company or should you look somewhere else to become a network engineer? I have seen both cases happen. Remember that person I told you about that he worked in the help desk and he wanted to get into networking, but he was pushed, he was basically ignored. He was not supported by his company. Well, he left and he did other smaller networking type stuff. It wasn't part of his primary job. But now, right now, my good friend, he is a network engineer working for good technology. He's doing Cisco Catalyst 6500 deployments. He's doing SIP calls. He's doing a lot of cool stuff. It definitely works. So don't think that it doesn't happen. It definitely happens if the environment calls for it. So for good technology, he mainly just did like servers. But his environment was very open that he ended up doing networking for the company. So now he is the network engineer for the company. He doesn't call me anymore for work. Shucks. But I'm very, very happy for him. He's very knowledgeable. He's in a great position for that. And that's what's very important. Is the company open to opportunities where you can move up to different type of groups? And that one place where he tried to become a network engineer, I agree, that environment had very little support from management. It was how they did politics in that company, that people don't really move around too much. And of course, that would never be a good fit. So that's why you really want to figure that out. And the best way is you likely have one-on-one meetings with your manager. For that, just sit down and talk to them. Tell them something like this. Just say, I want to talk to you kind of about my career aspirations, what I really want to accomplish. I love working for this company. I love what I'm doing. I like the people that I work with and the management team. You want to say all that first. What I want to do, I want to be a network engineer, and I am making the efforts of doing that. I am preparing for certifications. I'm getting my CCNA, and I have plans of getting my CCNP. And hopefully more. I have plans that I really want to work in the networking department in my company. And I understand the environment. I understand the people. I can definitely understand the networking. I'm working with the network engineers. I'm getting the network diagrams. I'm learning from there. And I really have plans that I would like to move into that department, even as a junior network engineering role. Even if part of my job is networking and I still do help desk, I want to eventually get into that role. And what I really want to know is, will I have support from my management team of supporting me on my career goals? Because I want to keep all the knowledge within the company that I work at. You want to say things like that to your manager, and you want to see how they respond to it. And have deliverables. Because they may say, well, we want you to get certified. Okay, get certified and see what happens. But if you get the feel that nothing is really happening, then I strongly recommend, and it could be tough based on where you live and where you work and your working conditions and your family life. So make those decisions personally though. But if the environment does not support your decision of supporting your career, then you should not work in that environment. I have done that a few times. That if I feel like that the management team does not support the things that I want to accomplish, because the only thing what's happening is I'm making the company better. But if they don't support me on whatever it is, then I have to look somewhere else. Because I have to look for the best interest for my career, for what I want to do. So you want to kind of keep that thinking in mind, but be smart about it, of course. You want to definitely use your company and see how they support you on what you want to do. And some of them may do that. It is very possible. But some of them, they may not do that. So you want to kind of keep that as an option that, should I stay here or should I not stay here? Because if they do not support you, the chances of you being a networking person will be very, very unlikely. So you want to keep that in mind. Is the environment open for opportunities of moving to different groups or departments? So the next thing will be a little cheeky, but everybody does this. And that is, it's all about how your resume is presented. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people have problems with. So let's say that you are a help desk person And your title that your company told you is that you are a help desk support person. Okay, help desk support. That's your job title. If you put that on your resume, and if you are applying for a network engineering position, you very likely you will not be considered for a network engineering position, even if it is a junior network position. You may get a phone call, so don't think that it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. I have personally seen management go through different resumes, and if they see help desk, they put it aside. They don't even consider it because that's a help desk person. They're trying to find a networking person. So what I tell people is you need to really get your resume to be network focused. Be focused around networking. So right in the beginning, so you have basically your objective. I'm finding employment as a network engineer. Then next, you should list your certifications. So you will have your CCENT, your CCNA. If you have your CCNP, you want to bring that to bring up to the attention of people. So they go, oh, wow, they got their certification. That's really impressive. Furthermore, with the certification that you take that have little logos, put those logo images on your resume. Trust me, it stands out. It is exactly what people want to see. Because picture speaks 1,000 words. When we're looking through different resumes, or companies are looking through different resumes, the picture catches their attention. Okay? Not just all the words. They're like, oh, this is a CCNA person. And then they start reading it. Well, in the beginning part, it will list the certification, so it will catch their attention. Then you have your different job experience and things of that magnitude. You need to craft your resume to be more networking focused. So that's important. And now, when you start listing your jobs, so you gotta be very careful about how you do this. Don't stretch the truth too much. But if you do a lot of networking responsibilities in the help desk or technical support role, I talked about that is really important that you must have that, you must be in that position. And you do a lot of route changes and firewall changes and things that are networking related. Put all of that, heavily emphasize in the resume. Now, if you say, well, I do a lot of desktops, talk about it lightly, but don't make that the focus on the resume. You want the people to look at it to say, oh, okay, this is a networking person that's looking for a networking position. You put down a lot of desktops and FSMA roles and a lot of Server 2012 and a lot of Microsoft Word and Office. Don't do that. Because when you see that, we're looking at that person as a desktop person or as a server person. And those kind of people we usually do not consider for a true networking type of position. Now, if it's a network engineering position, then that's perfectly fine. You can adjust and you can make updates accordingly to your resume. But that is very, very important. So what about the actual job title? That's something that kind of also stands out too. Because I can look at the certifications and I can look at the jobs, but we're also looking at the job title. Now the job titles are more like a very basic identification. So if your company says, yes, your title is a help desk support specialist. But guess what? If you are doing networking, put down network specialist. You can definitely do that. There's no harm in that. Here's a good personal example that I encountered 5 years ago. So as part of my professional career, I talked about this, but I used to work for the Department of Energy, not the entire Department of Energy. It's a big kind of organization, but it's working for the government. And I worked for a part of that in Livermore, which has about 10,000 plus people. And so human resources in that particular organization, they determine the job titles. So human resources, they know nothing about technical stuff, nothing about networking. They're not technical people. So when I worked in that environment and I applied for a particular position, which I knew what it was, my official job title was Senior Network Scientist. DOE has a lot of scientists. So they're a network scientist. That's not what I am. I was responsible for managing the architecture for the backbone of that entire campus. My title was a senior backbone engineer. And I used to talk to my manager and to the director about that all the time. They're like, yeah, it's just how they do things here. Yes, obviously we're backbone engineers here, but that's just how they do titles. So you will see on my LinkedIn page, it says senior backbone engineer because that's what I did at the laboratory. So that is something that is really important, is getting your resume to be networking focused and not desktop or server support focused. That's very, very important. I've seen a lot of resumes go quickly ignored because of those type of things that happens. And there you have it. So what's really important is that if you are in a help desk role, you need to make sure that you are in a help desk role that has networking responsibilities, that you are managing networking equipment. You need to be in that position. If you're not, then you need to be or get yourself into that position, because if you're not, it will be very challenging to get from point A to point B, and point B is being a network engineer. It's a very tough road. But the same thing really applies for servers, server administration as well. So you need to be in that position. That's number one. Number two, get certified, get your CCNA, and keep going. Go for that CCNP, which is what Mr. Githinch is pursuing. That's a very good track, very good. Continue doing that. Also determine specifically the company that you work in. Are the network engineers, are they open and supportive of answering questions and giving you information of how you can learn about what is relevant and practical in that environment? And is that company supportive of you eventually becoming a network engineer in that department? Some companies are supportive, some are not. Determine that and make a decision whether you should stay there or you should move somewhere else that benefits your career better. And by the way, if you're looking at like a help desk role or like a technical support role, do it for a networking company. Like let's say that you do help desk for Cisco. They do networking all the time. That's how I started out. I did a lot of networking there. I did passive recoveries. I did bridging. I did a lot of stuff. But Cisco is a networking company. So if you're going to do technical support or help desk with network responsibilities, then do it for a networking company or do it for an ISP, because that is network centric. That will give you great experience to pump up your experience so that it can allow you to become a network engineer. So that's definitely a very, very huge thing that you can definitely consider in your path to get there. But of course, also get your lab experience too. Get experience of learning, getting hands-on experience, investing into the equipment, whether it's virtual routers or getting physical routers, and just learning all these different things using the topology that I showed you earlier. It definitely will help. Also, if you're doing networking on the side for like your church or for some other kind of smaller, smaller store, everything counts. Everything counts. I don't care if they have 2 or 3 people. That perfectly counts. And if you connect them to the internet and you connect the firewall for them, that counts, because all that is stuff that you can put on your resume and talk about during the interview process. So I hope the information was very helpful. Just follow those guidelines. And once again, I want to thank you guys for posting your fantastic questions. And I want to hear from you. Post your questions about anything about the networking field or becoming a network engineer in the comments below, and I will bring it up in a future video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, and I will see you next time.